But I do think a lot of the things you've said are blatant misogyny. Do you accept that?
So you made a very interesting point there. You just said on the face of it appear to be blatantly misogynistic. I understand that on the face of some of the long format content I've made, if you're going to take a few seconds out of hours, chop it up, put it all over social media, accompanied with my massive fame, then things can absolutely not be taken out of context.
Andrew fucking Tate, ladies and gentlemen, I would say the most dangerous debater alive. The person people fear to debate. What we're going to review today is the quality of his speech, the quality of his communication, of his leadership. I will review it from the perspective of the 6 pillars of speaking that I also teach my clients as a speaking charisma coach. Let's see how he does in this debate against Piers Morgan. Now, I already have something to say.
Are blatant misogyny. Do you accept that?
So you made a very interesting point there. You just said on the face of it appear to be blatantly misogynistic.
One of the best debating techniques, one of the best communication techniques is that when someone attacks you, the guy literally said, most of what you say is misogynistic. Instead of reacting defensively and attacking back, which is what people expect, you break the pattern by doing what martial arts are talking about, which is using your opponent's force against them. So he just said, I actually agree with you. You made a very interesting point. You start with what you agree. That's one of the best communication techniques because you don't want to attack back because then it just escalates and you also lose the frame. Now he took the attack. He said, I low-key agree with that part. And now he's going to come back. Let's see.
I do not hate women in any regard. I have no negative relationship with women. No women have come forward saying I've hurt them. I have no criminal record for hurting women. There's no way I can be seen as the face or the devil in regards to how men treat women on the planet. I'm absolutely and utterly the opposite. I believe in protecting and providing. I've been misunderstood. There's been large contingents of people who have tried.
Okay, so far, you guys, I want you to notice there isn't a single filler word. There isn't a single there isn't a single right, okay. That man just straight up spits. And that's one of the 6 pillars, which is the flow of your speech. One of the most dangerous things in speaking is filler words. It's when people are not comfortable with silence. And that's another thing he did. Watch this.
I've been misunderstood. There's been large contingents.
This is a very important moment. He paused. 95% of people would have said, in that moment, would put a filler word there. He just went silent, and then he kept going. Your ability to be comfortable with silence is a very direct reflection of your confidence when you speak.
Of people who have tried very hard to purport lies about me. And the truth of the matter is, I've been producing content for a very long time.
So this is obviously repeating these words is where he loses a little bit of that, but compared to everything he just did, obviously, it's forgiven very fast.
Hours and hours of videos been cut down to 2 or 3 seconds of clip. Those clips have gone viral and people misunderstand me.
But I think you've used this phrase and be taken out of context, and I'm not sure that is correct in the sense that it still comes out of your mouth. And some of the things you've said, I just think are blatantly.
Well, let's do them. Let's hear them.
Let's go through some.
Sure.
Right. So you said this about Me Too stroke.
I'll put it back to play in a few seconds. This is, again, another feedback, something for Tate to improve. In a debate, the person who has the strongest frame is the person who's most comfortable, is the person who is enjoying themselves the most, who's the calmest. And I got to give this one to Piers here. If you just look at the body language, Piers is just chilling. He's enjoying himself. He looks calm while Tate is cutting him off, and he looks a bit nervous here is what I noticed, but let's see what he has to say.
Right. This is probably 40% of the reason I moved to Romania. In Eastern Europe, none of this garbage flies. You go to the police and say he raped me back in 1988. They'll say, well, you should have done something about it back then.
Yeah, so the point I was making was obviously at the height of the Me Too scandal, and also if we look at Amber Heard and Johnny Depp, there's been a lot of high-profile cases where men have been accused of things they did not do without evidence, and their lives have been completely and utterly destroyed.
Right.
When I say these things, people sit and say that, oh, he hates women. I don't hate women. I think rape is disgusting. I would take a stronger stance on rape than the British government. I think these people should face the death penalty. But to sit and say that women without evidence can go forward and just make up accusations against men, even though they've been repeatedly proven to destroy men's lives at will, is absolutely and utterly
What about a
asinine.
woman who was?
We remove any moral, political, whatever. This is not what this video is about. I will not talk about the arguments in this video. What I'll talk about is the communication. We can all agree him saying his argument this fast without stuttering is crazy. I would say his biggest power is the flow. Now, let's start reviewing a bit more of the pillars. Another pillar I have is novelty. Novelty, the quality of the ideas that you share. Now, here, we're going to stay objective, and we're going to look at it in a way where the quality of the ideas you share, in my opinion, the way a speaker can be judged is by how original an idea is. If you repeat what everyone else is repeating, you're not interested. That's not good speaking. I would say, in the case of Andrew Tate, he tends to be very bold with his statements. He tends to say things that aren't always politically correct. He tends to challenge the status quo a lot, whether you agree with him or not. He has the courage to speak his own truth, which I would say is high quality.
Have been repeatedly proven to destroy men's lives at will is absolutely and utterly
What about a
asinine.
woman who was raped back in 1988 and goes to the police?
Then the man should face absolute and complete justice.
But do you understand that when that clip appears on TikTok as a clip, and all right,
as a clip, completely.
Okay, but it's still something that came out of your mouth. Do you accept that when that appears on TikTok?
Again, Piers is so much calmer, and Tate is already getting heated up. So that's definitely him losing frame here.
A lot of young, maybe not as smart as you, young men, right? Impressionable, teenagers, will read that and go, what's he saying here? Is he saying that rape doesn't exist?
No, I completely. I'm not going to sit here as a professional and say that I can't be taken out of context. What I will say is that one small sentence you've taken was from a 1-hour video where I explained that, of course, rape is disgusting. Of course, everybody should be punished for their crimes regardless of when they happen. But people are not perfect, male and female. And if you give women the opportunity to destroy men's lives without evidence, there's going to be a contingent of women who will do that. I'm trying to make a balanced and nuanced argument in a world where people have no attention span. They're going to take a few seconds, put it online, decide someone's good or bad, not be interested in the longer format video. And here I am. No, I'm certainly a person who takes personal responsibility. That's who I am as a person. But we live in a world now with TikTok videos 5 or 6 seconds long. There's no content.
Do you think women are the proper?
See, I just used a filler word. That's note to self. Must be careful with that when reviewing these videos. The third pillar is clarity. Now, the way I define clarity is how relatable is it to the audience? How understandable is it? I would say Tate tends to be very clear in the way he speaks. Matter of fact, he gives examples. He says things that people wish they had the courage to mention, but are afraid of social repercussions, which is why I would say it's very understandable, his perspective, which I would give him a lot of points for that one. Then the fourth one is charisma, which I define as the ability to make people experience desire in your presence. Now, this depends on the niche, doesn't it? Meaning, some people think Tate is disgusting, zero charisma. Other people think he's the most charismatic person ever. Why? Because he represents a very specific, a very exaggerated character, an archetypical character of what that is where I would put a little bit of my opinion overall, not on this interview or the point discussed here, but on Tate overall. He represents what I call immature masculinity, which is better than weakness, in my opinion. It's better than weakness, but it's worse than divine masculinity. It's worse than conscious masculinity. So I believe he represents this image of what young men could desire: the power, the woman, the money, the freedom. They feel weak in their lives. They feel like they don't have that much control. They don't have that much freedom. So he represents that. That is why he would be very charismatic charismatic for these people.
Now, with TikTok videos 5 or 6 seconds long, there's no content.
Do you think women are the property of men?
No. The point I was making...
Why have you said they are?
Because I made a religious point. I said that when a man marries a woman, the woman's father walks her down the aisle, and hands her away to the man. Traditionally, this is what it says in the Bible. I'm a religious person. I believe in God. I live in the most religious country in the world.
So you do think that the woman becomes the men?
I think she takes his last name.
I mean, let's watch the clip that you said about this so that we can get it in context.
So I think my sister is her husband's property, yes. When a bride is walking down the aisle to marry the groom, the father walks next to her and gives her away. True or false?
Absolutely.
But I've been married twice, as it turns out, and on both occasions I didn't believe that the woman was being handed to me as chattel, as property.
Perhaps the way the reason I'm asked that question repeatedly, and I'm asked in a loaded way.
So would you rephrase what you said there?
Now, that's an interesting point about phrasing. The way I would say things before I was famous, I have to take personal responsibility and accept that if I make a video that 500 people see and 1% of them misunderstand it, that's not a problem. If I make a video that 5 million people see and 1% of them understand.
So specifically on that point.
Okay, the next point is certainty. The next pillar is certainty. I would say this segment is where Piers actually has a lot of frame, and he has more certainty than Tate, which is why you can notice Tate already getting shaken in his argument, getting shaken in his communication. You can feel it. You can feel it just in the way he speaks. Now, overall, however, the certainty with which Tate speaks in all of his content is top-notch. I mean, he speaks as if he knows he has all the answers and no one can deny it. That's the confidence with which he speaks, which is why I believe he has that much influence on the younger generation, because the less experience you have in life, the more susceptible you are to blindly believing someone who is certain in what they have to say.
I think my sister is her husband's property.
She took his last name. She married him. She wanted to join his family. She has said it herself.
Right. So she's
still a sovereign individual. She's absolutely not a sovereign individual.
Property means that the husband owns your sister.
Listen, my friend, if we want to argue about this, you need to go back to the Bible, to the Quran. You need to argue with religious.
No, I'm not talking about anything in the Bible or Quran.
But that's what it says.
No, I'm asking you what you think.
I think that if a woman marries a man and she decides to take his last name, that they have different roles and responsibilities within that marriage, and I believe that.
That's not the question.
I believe the father. I am. The father hands her.
Don't behave like a politician.
The father hands her to the man.
Right, but don't be a politician, because I think you're a straight talker, right? You keep telling me you're a straight talker. I think my sister is her husband's property. Do you regret saying it like that?
I understand that with my newfound fame, perhaps it could be phrased differently. However, I still believe that a woman is given to the man in marriage. That's what I believe.
Yeah, but not as property.
See, here, he's regaining his certainty. That's just for the previous point. Now, the next point and last point is congruency. Now, the way I define congruency is the alignment between what you say and who you are as a person. Obviously, Tate's takes, what he says, is very directly aligned with what he shows he is, which is why his congruency is very high. So when he talks about, the power of money or masculinity or independence or physical strength or woman, you can very obviously see he's actually living that lifestyle, which creates a lot of power. Now, the way you can portray congruency in a speech without being a huge personal brand like him, because we know his lifestyle because he's famous. But let's say you see a speaker for the first time. How do you know if he's congruent or not? Personal storytelling. By telling stories about yourself. When you teach someone, when you share an idea, back it up with a story.
No, the property is the word that other people use when they ask me the question.
But as an equal partner in a loving union, that's what marriage actually means. It doesn't mean that when you get married, the woman is given to you as a bit of chattel.
Agreed.
So why say it?
But that's the way that people ask me the question. People say to me, they ask the
question.
Hang on,
you can't blame people for asking you questions. Surely, if you want to be accountable for what you've said, you've got to own your...
All right, we could go for hours, and I will link the full interview if you want to watch it. But I would say the overall feedback I have besides the pillars is that in a debate, I want you guys to remember this. The moment you get emotion to let emotions go to your head, the moment you get nervous, reactive, you lose. The most comfortable person, the person who's literally they're just either looking for the truth or not trying to prove anything, just share their perspective and open to being challenged and genuinely having truth by their side. This is how you win a debate. Now, with that being said, this was all for me today. I want you guys to comment who should I review next. You guys tend to enjoy these videos a lot. They work the best on this channel and I enjoy making them a lot. So until next time, much love, be grateful, peace.